Ladies and gentlemen, listen up, because I need you to understand something right now. There's a type of woman in this world who doesn't just enter a man's life, she shifts it. She doesn't ask for attention, she doesn't beg for love, she doesn't play games, and yet she leaves even the strongest men weak in the knees. Now, I'm not talking about just any woman. I'm talking about a woman who has purpose, power, and grace. A woman who knows who she is and who she belongs to. See, when a man encounters that kind of woman, something happens. His mind starts racing, his soul starts searching, and his ego starts crumbling. Because he realizes this is not the kind of woman you can impress with words. This is the kind of woman who requires action. And that's exactly why today I'm going to break down 7 things that make a man weak for a godly, chosen, and blessed woman. Stick with me, because by the time we're done, you'll never look at a high-value woman the same way again. There's something powerful about a woman who carries herself with purpose. She doesn't have to speak loudly, demand attention, or prove her worth to anyone. The moment she walks into a room, there's a shift in the atmosphere. People notice, even if they can't quite explain why. Her energy is different. It's composed, it's intentional, and it carries a weight that only those who are truly paying attention can understand. Especially those who are used to chasing superficial beauty find themselves at a loss when they encounter a woman like this. She doesn't move like the rest. She's not seeking validation. She's not fishing for compliments. She's not playing the game of trying to be noticed, because she already knows who she is. And that alone makes a man pause. There are women who crave attention, and then there are women who command respect without saying a word. The difference? One is chasing external approval, while the other is already rooted in her own self-worth. And let me tell you something. Nothing shakes a man more than a woman who doesn't need him to feel complete. He can sense it from the way she holds herself, from the way she makes eye contact, not in a flirtatious, attention-seeking way, but in a way that says, I see through you. A man who isn't ready for this kind of presence, he'll feel exposed, he'll feel small, because suddenly all the little tricks, all the smooth lines, all the tactics he's used before, they don't work on her. She's seen it all. She's been through enough to recognize authenticity from a mile away. She's not impressed by expensive gifts or sweet words whispered in the dark. She's impressed by character, by integrity, by the way a man carries himself when nobody's watching. And if he lacks those things, he knows deep down that he has no place in her life. This is why men feel weak around her. Not because she diminishes them, but because she forces them to confront themselves, to ask themselves, am I enough? And that question alone shakes them more than they're willing to admit. A man who's been coasting through life, winning women over with charm and surface-level attraction, suddenly finds himself feeling like a boy again. Because this isn't the kind of woman he can win over with just a good time. She's not looking for temporary. She's not looking for excitement that fades when the night is over. She's looking for something real. And let me tell you, when a man realizes that, he has only 2 choices: step up or step aside. Some men will rise to the occasion. They'll recognize that this is the kind of woman who can push them toward greatness. Not by nagging, not by forcing, but simply by being who she is. She sets a standard without even speaking it out loud, a standard that says, if you want to be in my life, you better come correct. And the right man, he'll take that as a challenge to become better, to grow, to level up. But the wrong man, he'll crumble under the pressure. He'll feel like he's not enough because deep down, he isn't ready to be more. He's comfortable with mediocrity, and he knows that mediocrity has no place next to a woman of this caliber. So what does he do? He makes excuses. He tries to break her confidence. He'll call her too much, too independent, or say she has high standards, as if that's a flaw. But she won't budge. She won't dim her light to make him feel better about himself, because she understands something too many people don't. Her presence alone is a filter. The wrong men will eliminate themselves. The right man will rise. And that's why she keeps moving the way she does. She doesn't lower herself to be more digestible. She doesn't shrink just to make weak men feel comfortable. She stays exactly as she is, because the one who's meant to stand beside her won't be afraid of her power. He'll be inspired by it. So if you ever wonder why men feel weak around a certain kind of woman, understand this. It's not because she does anything to make them feel weak. It's because her very existence forces them to face their own reality. She is a mirror, reflecting back to them everything they are or are not. And the truth is, most men aren't ready to see that reflection. There's something about a woman with true grace and discipline that shakes a man at his core. Not because she's aggressive, not because she demands attention, but because her very existence is a testament to self-mastery. She moves with intention, speaks with clarity, and operates from a place of deep understanding. A man who lacks discipline himself, who's used to chasing fleeting pleasures, indulging every impulse, finds himself feeling small in her presence. Discipline isn't just about structure or routine. It's about control. Control over emotions, control over desires, control over the direction of one's life. And a woman who possesses this kind of discipline, she's not easily swayed. She's not moved by flattery. She's not drawn in by shallow words. And she's certainly not going to tolerate inconsistency. She holds herself to a higher standard, and the moment a man recognizes that, he either rises to meet that standard or he crumbles under it. Weak men are used to leverage. They're used to manipulating situations to their advantage, using charm, wealth, or temporary excitement to distract from their own shortcomings. But when they meet a woman who is disciplined, who knows herself and knows her worth, all those tricks stop working. She's unshaken by material things. She's unimpressed by empty gestures. She's watching something deeper. She's watching his consistency, how he moves when nobody's watching, how he responds under pressure, how he handles setbacks. She's watching if he practices what he preaches, or if he's just another man full of words with no action behind them. And here's the truth. Men who lack discipline, men who are ruled by their impulses, cannot stand being around a woman like this, because she is a constant reminder of everything they are not. She reminds them that they lack self-control, that they let their emotions dictate their decisions, that they chase comfort instead of growth, and instead of rising to meet her level, most men, they'll make excuses. They'll say she's too serious, that she doesn't know how to have fun. But the reality is, a disciplined woman doesn't settle for bare minimum effort. She's not waiting around for a man to figure himself out. She's moving forward, pursuing her purpose, following her calling, and maintaining the standard she's built for herself. She's not here to fix a man. She's not here to babysit his potential. She's here to walk alongside someone who is already moving with intention. So when an undisciplined man meets her, he feels exposed. He realizes that everything he's been getting away with before, the inconsistency, the lack of direction, the avoidance of responsibility, none of it will fly with her. He realizes that if he wants to keep up, he'll have to change. He'll have to let go of the excuses, the distractions, the bad habits that have been holding him back. And that's the real reason most men feel weak in front of a woman like this. Not because she belittles them, not because she thinks she's better, but because her existence alone challenges them to be more. The undisciplined man doesn't want to be challenged. He wants comfort. He wants easy. He wants a woman who will accept his flaws without pushing him to overcome them. He wants a woman who will tolerate his inconsistency instead of holding him accountable. But a disciplined woman, she's not here for potential. She's here for growth. And that is why the right kind of man will see her not as a threat, but as an opportunity. The right man will recognize that she is the type of woman who elevates everything around her, the type of woman who doesn't just inspire, but who also expects. Because discipline isn't about being rigid. It's about respecting yourself enough to demand better from yourself and from the people you allow into your life. And for a man who isn't ready for that, that truth alone is too much to handle. There's a different level of confidence in a woman who trusts her intuition. She doesn't just hear the words being spoken, she reads between the lines. She doesn't just see what's in front of her, she senses what's hidden beneath the surface. And for a man who isn't used to being truly seen, this can be unsettling. Most men are comfortable operating at a surface level. They say the right things, play the right roles, and expect that to be enough. But when they meet a woman whose intuition is razor sharp, they quickly realize they can't fake it with her. She can pick up on things before they're ever spoken. She knows when something is off, even when nothing has been said. She sees patterns, inconsistencies, and contradictions with ease, and that shakes a man to his core. Weak men rely on illusion. They build images of themselves that are carefully constructed, designed to impress, to manipulate, to control how others perceive them. But a woman with strong intuition, she cuts right through that. She doesn't need evidence. She doesn't need someone to confirm her suspicions. She knows. And that kind of knowing, it's powerful. It makes an undisciplined man uneasy because he realizes he can't hide. He can't pretend to be someone he's not. He can't mask his insecurities, his fears, or his weaknesses in front of her because she'll call it out, not with hostility, not with judgment, but simply with her awareness. And nothing weakens a man more than realizing he isn't as put together as he thought he was. This is why some men will try to invalidate a woman's intuition. They'll tell her she's overthinking. They'll call her paranoid. They'll try to convince her that she's imagining things. But deep down, they know she's right. They know she's seeing something they hoped would go unnoticed. A strong, intuitive woman doesn't just accept what she's told. She listens to what isn't being said. She reads body language. She senses shifts in energy. She can tell when someone is being genuine and when someone is putting on a show. And a man who is not operating from a place of honesty, he will feel exposed in her presence. But here's the difference between the weak man and the strong man. The weak man fears her intuition. The strong man respects it. The weak man feels like he's losing control because he can't manipulate her perception. He can't twist reality in his favor. The strong man, on the other hand, sees her intuition as a gift. He values it. He trusts it. He recognizes that being with a woman who sees things clearly is an advantage, not a threat. But most men, they aren't ready for that kind of partnership. They aren't ready to be held to a standard of truth and transparency. They aren't ready to be fully seen, fully known, fully understood, because they've spent so long perfecting the art of hiding behind charm, behind status, behind carefully curated images of strength. And an intuitive woman, she breaks that illusion. She forces a man to confront himself, to be real, to drop the performance and show up authentically. And for some men, that's terrifying because authenticity requires accountability. It requires growth. It requires facing the things they've spent years avoiding. This is why weak men feel intimidated by intuitive women, because they know there is no place for deception here, no room for inconsistency, no space for empty words and false promises. And let me tell you something, a woman with intuition, she will never beg for the truth. She will never force a man to be honest. She will simply recognize when he isn't and walk away, because a woman like that doesn't waste time trying to fix or change someone who isn't ready to be real. She doesn't sit around waiting for a man to become honest. She already knows. She sees the signs, she feels the shifts, and she makes her decisions accordingly. That is why a man who isn't ready for truth will feel weak in her presence, because she holds up a mirror he isn't prepared to look into. She reflects back to him the gap between who he pretends to be and who he truly is. And when faced with that reality, he only has two choices: step up or step aside. There's something powerful about a woman who sets standards and enforces them without hesitation. She doesn't just talk about what she wants, she lives by it. She doesn't compromise her values for temporary attention, nor does she lower her expectations to make someone else comfortable. And for a man who is used to doing the bare minimum, that's a reality check he's not prepared for. Most men have been conditioned to believe that persistence is enough, that if they just keep showing up, keep saying the right things, and keep applying pressure, eventually they'll wear a woman down. But a woman with real standards, she doesn't budge. She's not waiting to be convinced. She's not entertaining inconsistency. She knows exactly what she deserves, and she's not afraid to walk away when those standards aren't met. And that is what makes a weak man feel powerless, because a woman like this cannot be controlled by false promises. She cannot be manipulated by charm. She cannot be won over by surface-level effort. She's looking for something real, something built on integrity, character, and follow-through. And a man who isn't prepared to meet that, he will feel inadequate in her presence. Because here's the truth, weak men thrive in uncertainty. They thrive in spaces where expectations are blurry, where effort is optional, where they can slide by on potential rather than results. But a woman with clear standards, she removes that gray area. She makes it plain. Step up or step out. And that's where the weakness is exposed. A weak man doesn't want to be held to a higher standard. He doesn't want to be measured by his consistency, his integrity, or his ability to lead. He wants to move on his own terms, when it's convenient for him, when it benefits him, when it requires the least amount of effort. But a woman with strong standards won't allow that. She doesn't give endless second chances. She doesn't beg for the bare minimum. She doesn't settle just because she's afraid of being alone. And that forces a man to ask himself some hard questions. Am I really ready for this? Can I meet her at her level? Do I have what it takes to stand beside a woman like this? And if the answer is no, he'll do what most weak men do. He'll try to make her feel guilty for having standards in the first place. He'll call her too picky. He'll say she's expecting too much. He'll tell her she should be more understanding. But what he's really saying is, I don't want to grow. I don't want to put in the work. I don't want to rise to meet the challenge. And that is why a woman with standards makes a weak man feel small, because she forces him to either level up or leave. She makes him realize that words without actions mean nothing, that potential without progress is worthless, that showing up inconsistently isn't enough to secure a place in her life. And if he's not ready for that, he will crumble. He will walk away. He will convince himself that she's the problem instead of acknowledging the truth that he simply wasn't strong enough to stand beside her. A woman with high standards is not asking for too much. She is simply asking for what is right. She is demanding the same level of respect, effort, and commitment that she is willing to give. And a real man will recognize that. A real man will see her standards not as an obstacle, but as an opportunity. An opportunity to be better, do better, and become more. Because a strong woman with standards doesn't just elevate herself. She elevates everything around her. And the only men who fear that are the ones who know they aren't ready to rise. A woman who is truly independent and self-sufficient is a force to be reckoned with. She doesn't wait around for someone to rescue her. She doesn't rely on a man to provide her with stability, financially, emotionally, or spiritually. She knows how to take care of herself, how to make her own decisions, how to navigate life's challenges without seeking permission or validation. And for a man who is used to being needed rather than chosen, this can be deeply unsettling. A weak man finds comfort in dependency. He wants to feel like he is the center of a woman's world, the reason she gets up in the morning, the foundation of her entire existence. But when he meets a woman who already has her own foundation, who already has her life in order, who doesn't need him to complete her, he feels powerless. Because now he has to prove that he brings something of real value to the table. And that's the problem. A weak man doesn't want to bring value. He wants to be valued simply for showing up. He wants to be needed so that he never has to question his worth. But an independent woman, she doesn't need a man just for the sake of having one. She's not looking for someone to complete her because she's already whole. She's looking for someone who can complement her, who can grow with her, who can build with her, who can, and that makes a weak man feel small because now he has to ask himself, what do I actually bring to her life? Not just money, not just words, not just empty gestures. What real value does he offer? How does he support her growth? How does he challenge her to be better? How does he match her energy, her mindset, her ambition? And if he doesn't have an answer, he feels exposed. Because with an independent woman, he can't rely on control, on dominance, on making her feel like she can't survive without him. He can't use dependency as leverage. He has to step up in ways he never has before. But here's the truth. A weak man doesn't want to step up. He doesn't want to improve himself. He doesn't want to rise to the challenge. He wants the easy route. He wants a woman who will shrink herself to make him feel bigger. But an independent woman, she doesn't shrink for anyone. She stands tall in her truth. She walks boldly in her purpose. She doesn't need permission to go after her dreams. She doesn't need someone else's approval to live the life she envisions. And for a weak man who thrives on control, that is a nightmare. Because if he can't control her, he can't define his worth through her. This is why weak men try to diminish independent women. They'll call her too strong. They'll say she's intimidating. They'll tell her she should be softer, more submissive, more agreeable. But what they're really saying is, I can't handle a woman who doesn't need me to function. And that's not her problem. That's his. A strong woman doesn't reject love. She simply refuses to settle for love that requires her to sacrifice her independence. She refuses to play small just to make a man feel big. She refuses to dim her light to protect someone else's ego. And that's why a weak man crumbles in her presence. Because deep down, he knows that to keep a woman like this, he has to evolve. He has to grow. He has to meet her at her level. And if he's not willing to do that, he'll do what most weak men do. He'll walk away and blame her for it. He'll say she's too much. He'll say she doesn't know how to let a man lead. He'll create every excuse to avoid admitting the truth that he simply wasn't strong enough to stand beside her. But a real man, a man who is secure in himself, he sees her independence as a gift, not a threat. He understands that she doesn't need him, she wants him. And that makes their connection even more powerful. Because love is a choice, not a crutch. And only a strong man can stand beside a strong woman without feeling like he has to make her smaller just to feel like a man. A woman with deep spiritual and emotional wisdom is a woman who cannot be deceived. She sees beyond the surface. She doesn't just hear the words a man speaks, she feels his energy, discerns his intentions, and recognizes patterns before they even unfold. And for a man who operates in games, manipulation, and half-truths, that's a terrifying reality. Because a woman with wisdom doesn't fall for charm. She doesn't get swept away by sweet talk or empty promises. She understands that a man's character is revealed not in what he says, but in what he does consistently. And that makes a weak man uneasy. Weak men thrive in spaces where they can hide who they really are. They rely on illusion, on performance, on giving just enough effort to keep a woman guessing. But a wise woman, she sees through all of it. She knows when a man's words and actions don't align. She can sense when he's not being genuine. She doesn't have to wait for him to reveal himself. She already knows. And that means he has no control over her. He can't string her along with false hope. He can't play on her insecurities to keep her attached. He can't make her believe she's crazy when she calls him out on his inconsistencies. She is rooted in truth, and she trusts herself enough to know when something isn't right. That level of wisdom forces a weak man into an uncomfortable position. He has to be real or he has to leave. And most of the time he leaves. Not because she wasn't a great woman, not because she wasn't worth it, but because he knows he can't fake it with her. He knows she will not settle for potential. She will only invest in a man who is ready, willing, and capable of growing with her. And that's not him. So instead of rising to meet her, he makes excuses. He tells himself she's too difficult or too demanding. He convinces himself that she expects too much. But deep down, he knows the truth. He simply wasn't strong enough to handle her wisdom. Because wisdom demands accountability. A woman who has been through life, learned its lessons, and emerged stronger will not tolerate inconsistency, dishonesty, or emotional immaturity. She doesn't waste time on men who don't know what they want. She doesn't entertain situations that lack clarity. She understands that her time, her energy, and her peace of mind are too valuable to waste on someone who isn't serious about evolving. And that's what weak men fear the most. A woman who will not lower her standards just to keep them around. She doesn't beg for effort. She doesn't chase after commitment. She doesn't wait around for a man to figure out if he wants her or not. If he's not ready, she moves on, without hesitation, without regret. And that is what weak men can't handle, because they are used to women who second-guess themselves, who doubt their own intuition, who stay in confusion because they don't want to lose what they think they have. But a wise woman, she would rather walk away alone than stay in a situation where she isn't valued fully. And that's why a weak man will always struggle with her presence. Because he can't manipulate her. He can't string her along. He can't convince her to ignore her instincts. She sees the truth before he even speaks it. And he knows that. So his only option? To either become a better man or remove himself from her life entirely. And that's why most weak men disappear. Not because she was too much, not because she was unreasonable, but because she was too aware, too strong, too certain for a man who wanted to operate in uncertainty. But here's the thing, a woman like this is not a curse. She is a blessing, because the right man, the man who is secure, mature, and ready, will not fear her wisdom. He will honor it. He will cherish it. He will rise to meet it. And that's the difference between a weak man and a strong one. One runs away from wisdom, the other learns from it and grows. So let me leave you with this. If you are that woman, never lower your standards. Never dim your light. Because